Champions is simply getting out of hand. We haven't even traveled to the Accor Arena yet for this weekend's grand finals. But from upsets in the group stage continuing into the playoffs, who knows what it'll be next. But I at least got you covered on what's happened in this rapid recap, your main source of all the happenings at Valorant Champions Paris, with a quick recap of groups, the tournament's favorites, new and old antagonists, and so much more. Let's get on into it, shall we? We'll start with setting the table in case you might have missed the appetizers for this French menu. The group stage had so many bangers. When the top 16 teams across the world get together in a group stage, some things are bound to happen. First note going into the playoffs is that there is no Chinese representation. In fact, there was only a single team from China that didn't get DFR'd. DFR'd stands for double first rounded, by the way. Last year's champions and crowd pleasers EDG would be eliminated in groups from their loss to NRG and Team Liquid. Billy Gaming came into this event as China's #1 team, but couldn't get past the power of Brazil and MIBR and RRQ from the Pacific region. Dragon Ranger Gaming seemingly always going to be set up for failure going in towards this event, as it's damn near impossible to make a champs run with the last second fill-in. Albeit champ themselves, Demon One can only do so much, thus Dragon Ranger Gaming were eliminated by Demon One's former teammate and NA's #1 G2 Esports. Finally, XLG were the former China #1 at Masters Toronto, would win a series in groups, but would still be eliminated. But what about the other crowd favorites? There's one in particular that's been bleeding red logo as missing from the Champions playoffs. That, of course, would be Sentinels. Sentinels are officially the only team to make every international and domestic upper final, but America's Stage 2 #3 struggled at home versus NRG in lower finals and would continue to plague them in this round-to-round, match-to-match. Going 0-2 in Group A with a 1-2 loss to both Giant X and XLG was something anyone at all had on their pick'ems going into the event, I am sure. But what about the other favorites of the tournament? Here at GGN, we created a top 5 power rankings for the event, and although we already chatted about Sen and their downfall in groups, some of the other teams are not making it as far as the data had projected them to go. G2 Esports, America's #1 from Stage 2 and all-out frontrunners for a lot to make at least the grand finals, are no longer in the tournament. After getting 3rd at Masters Toronto and 2nd at Masters Bangkok, G2 Esports were always favored, but they had a tough road ahead of them as their first match was against Paper X. Losing that one 1-2 then pitted them against DRX, Pacific's #4 team, and G2 lost it, getting top 8 at a tournament that they were projected to get top 2 at worst. Head scratches for this team as they had their woes and their wows throughout Stage 2. Heretics would come into this tournament as a top 5 team as well, after snapping their grand finals curse at Esports World Cup, winning the tournament over Fnatic. Heretics were poised to make a deep run here with their somber strategy and simply pop-off potential. It came to an end though. Much like the aforementioned G2 Esports, Heretics had to step up and face tournament favorites Paper X after Pacific's powerhouse were knocked down to the elimination bracket by Fnatic themselves. Heretics would lose on the second day of elimination and place top 6, but should feel much more satisfied with their season compared to what it looked like at the end of Stage 1. We talked about some of the heavy favorites expected to turn heads in all the best and worst ways, but how about some of the underdogs making an antagonistic run throughout the tournament? Shattering ceilings is what the international stage is all about for these teams, and they have done much more than that. First up, gotta talk about DRX from the Pacific region. Ridden off after a shaky group stage, they clawed through the lower bracket like phoenixes on fire. Facing elimination? No problem. They stunned the world by dismantling G2 Esports 2-1 in that final map in the playoffs this weekend. With razor-sharp strats and unbreakable team spirit, DRX turned doubters into believers, especially with their map 3 win versus MIBR. Next, NRG, America's Resilient Warriors, dominating Group C by toppling defending champions EDG and outlasting DRX's group mates. They entered the playoffs as the surprise package. This weekend, they edged out MIBR 2-1 in their thriller, showcasing tactical genius and ice-cold clutches. From overlooked to overlords, NRG's underdog journey is all about smart plays and sheer will. Finally, we got MIBR from Brazil's fiery America scene. The ultimate comeback kids, they battled from group stage lower depths, eliminating RRQ and BLG to snag that playoff spot. Against powerhouse NRG this weekend, though, they pushed the nail-biting series into a 3rd map, but unfortunately came up ever so short. They also came up short today in this morning's broadcast, losing out to DRX, but we know that the Brazilian powerhouse and Aspas will be back next season. The protagonist of the event has to go to Fnatic. They had a major speed bump in their way to glory in Paris, and the biggest drama from the playoffs yet. For VCT Champions Paris, Fnatic had to play with a last-second fill-in on September 28th, where they were able to pull off a stunning 2-1 upset victory over Paper X, despite missing their star Sentinel player, Alphae, who was sidelined due to health issues, according to Fnatic's team director, Colin Kojo Johnson. The situation escalated to an overnight hospital, visits lasting about 8.5 hours on the night before the match, though no definitive diagnosis was obtained at that time. With the team prioritizing his health and well-being over competing, no additional details of this nature of the illness have been publicly disclosed by the team or player. So, Fnatic, they had to bring in that stand-in Doma as a last-minute replacement, who took the last-minute flight to help out Fnatic, his former team, adding to the tension of the rematch from VCT Masters Toronto Grand Finals earlier this year, where Paper X had previously triumphed in that Grand Finals of the aforementioned event in just 4 maps. Fnatic also came up short at EWC, losing to Team Heretics in the Grand Finals, furthering their fire to be the #1 team in attendance. Any help is good help, and this series itself was an absolute roller coaster. Paper X took the first map on Bind 13-10, but Fnatic dominated Haven 13-4, and then staged an epic comeback on the decider of Lotus, winning 12 straight rounds after trailing 3-9 to close it out 13-9. This sent the favored Pacific powerhouse Paper X through the lower bracket and secured Fnatic a top 3 finish, highlighting their resilience amidst the roster adversity and reigniting discussions about their storied rivalry. Where's your favorite team? Are they still fighting for the #1 spot? Well, who has the highest odds to win the entire tournament? Many, myself included, have Paper X making the lower bracket run all the way into Grand Finals to hoist the trophy like they did back in Toronto. As always, you want to make sure you subscribe to the Global Gaming Network channel and tune back in next Monday as we get you the rapid recap of VCT Champions Paris.